Good day, all. Well, we're going to have a little talk about firewood. And is pine fine? I'm going to say the only time that I would burn pine in a fireplace or in a wood stove is if I had no other alternative. I'm making this video because I saw a few videos about, can you burn pine? And I did find it interesting that the only ones that said, oh yeah, you can burn pine in a wood stove or in a fireplace were, guess what? Firewood sellers. I've been really lucky to have some really nice wood stoves. We can talk briefly about, ash, for instance. You can burn it green, but I do like to let it sit out for a year. If woods have a high moisture content, almost any kind of wood, they won't burn as hot. You're losing a lot of BTUs, and moisture also contributes to the buildup of creosote in your chimney. Well, the real problems with pine and spruce is, of course, they are absolutely loaded with resins. Even if they're properly cured, they are loaded with resins, and you can burn the stuff. If you want to let your stove burn out for 24 hours, once a week, and get up on your roof in the wintertime, like once a week, and clean your chimney, then you can burn pine. The other thing is that when you burn pine, you really should be running your stove wide open. Um, Even with hardwoods, especially if your hardwoods aren't cured properly, when you choke down your stove, it does increase the potential for resin buildup in your flue. Um, so when I owned my cottage down in Turkey Point, I heated basically exclusively with wood. And the first year I checked my chimney maybe a couple or three times. And after that, I only checked it once a year because I was burning uh, essentially perfectly seasoned wood. And in the 10 years that I was owned that property, I literally never had to clean my chimney once. If you burn appropriate species of wood and they're properly cured, anytime I looked up my chimney flue, it was shiny and almost spotless. And this is the other thing about pine is it throws relatively good heat, but outside of the resin buildup and the high potential for a chimney fire and cleaning out your chimney flue like once a week, it burns a lot faster. So while it's burning, it may produce a fairly comparable BTU, but you're still short on a lot of heat because it burns for maybe half of the time that a hardwood does. So, these firewood sellers, oh yeah, pine's fine, and there's only a little bit in there. Well, I'm sorry. I don't even know why they bother to put the pine in with it. Well, except for the fact that really, if you have pine in your wood delivery, you're getting ripped off. Okay? You shouldn't be burning it in a fireplace or in a wood stove. You very likely could have a chimney fire, and it doesn't produce nearly the amount of BTUs that a hardwood does. I don't know why these guys don't just leave it in the bush or sell it for pulp. But as I said about ash, I'll just talk a little bit about some of my favorite hardwoods. You know, you can burn ash green, but I like to leave it out for a year. It burns beautifully. And my favorite wood to burn um, is black walnut. The scent that it gives off when it's burning is absolutely heavenly. But um, black walnut needs to be standing for 3 years. Um, I tried burning some after the second 2 full years of curing, and it burnt okay. You know, it wasn't bad, but I knew it wasn't quite ready, so I left it the third year, and it was absolutely beautiful. But I want to talk too about wood storage. And I see a lot of guys will throw a tarp over top of their wood pile to keep the rain and the snow off of your wood pile. Do not tarp off your wood pile. If you tarp off your wood pile, how is your firewood supposed to cure? Um, the moisture can't get out. What I like to do is I'll put down a couple of stringers on the ground, and I'll pile the firewood up next to the house, about 4 inches away from the wall of the house, so that it's, you know, a little bit under the eave and 4 inches away from the house so the air can still get through it. And what I do is I will use, you know, my scraps of plywood, and you just put the plywood on top of the wood pile, and you want about 4 inches of extra plywood on the house side, and about, you know, 4 or 6 inches hanging out over the front of the wood pile. And you know, you slide your plywood up against the house, and with the plywood on top, and it's kind of under the eave, the rain can't get into the backside of the firewood, and the overhang on the front keeps the rain largely off of the front of the pile. The rain will hit, you know, kind of the bottom of the pile, of course, but you just cover the top, and you know, that way the air can still go through it. That is the way to store and cure your firewood. But I did make this video because, you know, I didn't want these guys in their bid to make some extra money put anyone's life at risk. The only place, as I said, the only time I would burn pine or spruce in an indoor fireplace or wood stove is if I had no other alternative and it was effing cold. Sure, I would burn it. Really, the only place for pine is in an open fire pit. That's the place to burn pine. And so I never ever burnt pine. Pine is not fine. Spruce is not fine. If you're getting this in your firewood, really you're getting ripped off because you're getting shorted a lot of BTUs. Pine does not burn very long. You're risking a chimney fire. And if you are burning pine, I insist that you go up, take the cap off of your chimney and check it like once a week. I had a friend who had a small wood stove in his garage, and he within a couple days he started burning, you know, old 2x4 cutoffs and stuff, and within a couple days of burning 2x4s, there was resin running back into the stove after only a couple days. So is pine fine? No, pine's not fine. And you firewood sellers, if you're putting pine and softwoods in with your wood deliveries, you're not only risking people's lives, but you're ripping these people off. And if you're getting pine in with your wood deliveries, I'd be looking for um, someone else to buy your firewood from. So, yeah, and just for everyone's information, I am actually a papered forester, and I've burnt a lot of wood stoves. I used to sell firewood myself. The firewood I used to sell was birch and oak veneer cores. I gotta say, the best firewood you can buy is hardwood veneer cores. The best wood that you can buy. So don't tarp your firewood. Stack it up about 4 inches away from the back of the house. Put some old plywood scraps on top of it, and season for the appropriate amount of time. Black walnut and oak. It's 3 years before you can really burn that stuff, get good heat out of it, and not get creosote buildup in your chimney. So, but I won't do a full tutorial on firewood. But I don't have a wood stove anymore, and I sure miss it, because I have to say, the way the world's going, it could really basically save your life. I worry about, I remember, was it 2005 here in Ontario when the power was out for about 3 days? And I know I'm guilty of, I don't keep very much food around the house. And if the power's off, even if you have cash, you can't buy groceries because they can't ring you through. So if the power's out, the grocery store is closed. And if most people are like me, I really only have about a week's worth of food around the house. Not to mention heating, but if you have a wood stove, it can really save you, because you can pull out a coal oil lantern or something for some light. But if you have a wood stove, you still have heat and you can still cook. All right, you may not have electricity, but if you have a wood stove, I'm still thinking about trying to arrange somehow installing one at where I live. Oh, and I wanted to mention as well about storing firewood in the house. And I see a lot of people, they'll just bring the firewood in and just stack it in the corner or whatever. Well, you really should have a sealed steel box, maybe with some vent holes in the bottom, but with a piece of screen over it. And the lid should have a foam seal, because the thing about bringing firewood into a home is, if you want termites and if you want bugs in your house, then yeah, just bring firewood into the house. There's all kinds of creepy nasties on firewood that you don't really notice, and nobody does. But you really should have, like I said, a steel box with a window screen type mesh over top of the ventilation holes, and a foam seal on the top of it, so that anything that does come in with your firewood doesn't, so to speak, enter your home. But anyways, guys, I hope you have a great day. Don't burn pine or spruce unless you absolutely have to. If you absolutely have to, then fine. Yeah, you can burn the stuff. I've never burnt the stuff. I don't even use it for kindling. I have never had any necessity to burn pine or spruce or any softwood. All right, you guys take care.